start of our day is in Glola, in the shadow of the Caucasus Mountains. We parked our car right next to the final destination of our trek and started taking a walk through the small village towards Shovi and the start of our trek. The path just leads along the road with little excitement, apart from a random pair of dogs that suddenly started trailing us along the road. To the side, you can still see the remains of a tragedy that happened here a few years ago. In August of 2023, a massive landslide killed 33 people in the area of Shovi, and the riverbed still speaks of the tragedy. Before reaching Shovi, our path heads up into the mountains on the right side. Just at the start, we also have a chance to refill water bottles from a spring.
We're right at the outskirts of Shovi. On the map, you can already see the plan that we have for the next 2 days. Today, we're starting all the way down here, going up, crossing Geske Pass, and we'll find our camp at Udziro Lake. And tomorrow, we'll get back down from Udziro Lake to Glola. We did park our car over here and just made this short trip. Didn't take more than maybe 30 minutes to get here. But tomorrow when we return home, we will have our car right at the point where we return to the road. So let's go. So, first lesson learned. This path is not easy to find. Yeah, we took some detour already in the first 50 meters, but there's a path marking again, so we are now back on the original path. And for some reason, these dogs just don't leave our side. But I guess we have protection for the day. But no payment. We don't have any food that we can spare. Well, let's go.
The first part of this 2-day hike is signposted on the path marker with 5 hours and 50 minutes, while the hike description speaks of 8 hours and a half. We found the second to be way more accurate. While the pace of 5 hours and 50 is perfectly doable on the initial part of the hike, later parts will become significantly more difficult, making the pace almost suicidal. At the start, the path leads through the forest. We quickly realized that the mention of blocked and overgrown sections on the path is as true as it can get. At the same time, many segments are incredibly slippery from the rain over previous days. After having done the entire path, I would strongly suggest starting in Shovi and ending in Glola. The other way around would be a lot more dangerous. Being used to the incredible hiking network in Switzerland, this path is something different. The very slippery and overgrown segment through the forest takes only about an hour. Here, the pace on the signpost is still manageable. The views towards the Caucasus are mostly blocked by the forest, but every now and again we can catch a glimpse of the beautiful mountain chain. Even if the path is a bit better now, we still take a significant amount of time before we reach a picnic area. It's in the shade, and the biggest benefit is that the area is flat and has some logs to sit on. From here, we head into the mountain meadows that offer a different challenge from the forest below. The overgrown path becomes a bit more difficult to follow. Path markers are entirely hidden, and GPS navigation is almost mandatory. Insects are numerous throughout the meadows. While it has its positive sides with a lot of beautiful butterflies, the horseflies are numerous as well, and they bite a lot. Good insect repellent is mandatory on this trip. While we are still climbing steadily uphill, the mountains now are visible more often and offer incredible panoramic views. Not long after, the view into the valley finally opens up. After the steady and steep ascent along the muddy forest path, the almost flat segment ahead of us is a saving grace. The sound of the river, the mountains in front of us. We can start making our way towards the base of Katitsvera Mountain and the Geske Pass. The main challenge in this area is to stay on the overgrown path. The entire path is covered by thick grass and flowers on the mountain meadow, and the only orientation is to follow along the small clearing left behind by previous hikers coming through. It's by pure chance that we find path markings every now and again. The river and the beautiful flowers make the segment incredibly picturesque and peaceful. Being alone, except for our dog companions, almost feels like a gift. Despite the time in early August, we still come across snow patches along the path. The partial collapse above the river shows why one has to be careful when crossing these fields. Luckily, this snowfield can be easily circumvented. Path markers are nowhere to be seen. We mostly follow the GPS track I had found online. At some point, this trail speaks of a river crossing. The stones here are very slippery, and hiking poles would make this a lot safer. After the crossing, we found it impossible to discover any tracks again. In the end, it turned out that the river crossing was not necessary, but that we should have stayed on the right side of the river. We ended up spotting path markers pointing up the mountain in the distance, leading to an additional river crossing to get back onto the path. From here, staying with pace on the signposts becomes impossible. The path becomes incredibly steep and very slippery. Aside from the tall grass, nothing offers options to grab onto, and each step needs to be considered carefully to not slide down the entire hill. Along the path, we have to cross smaller streams. Despite the beautiful mountains behind us, we have to keep our eyes pinned to the floor, trying to find our path through the thick bush and staying safe on the steep hill. After the initial climb, we have another short segment that enables a brief sit to get rest and to take in the beautiful mountain views. However, the path doesn't get easier from here. You will have to cross through Scree fields and possibly climb steep segments covered in snow patches. If you don't carry spikes, kicking small steps into the snow can help to secure a path. Kick with the hill-facing edge of the shoe into the snow to get a good footing. Again, hiking poles would have helped to stabilize the ascent. The path upwards remains steep and slippery, so steep that we couldn't film on many of the segments. Even our tiny friend struggled on a few segments. The path is located at an altitude of 3,085 meters. At the weight of the camera gear, the tent, water, this ascent ended up exhausting us almost to completion. With a total ascent on the day of about 1,800 meters over 12 kilometers, the first day is not to be underestimated. The path down to the campground becomes a lot easier. Not only walking down with the weight on our back is a lot easier, also the path is a lot better. The snowfields on this side of the mountain are a lot larger. Since the official hiking path is covered, we made use of our light spikes to make the traversal a bit safer. Even on a Friday, a series of other hikers is at the campground. After putting up the tent, it's finally time for a bit of hot food to recover from the efforts of the day and to watch the sun set over the lake and behind the mountains. Georgians are also passionate singers, so it is not unusual for someone to carry a guitar up the mountain and for groups to sing in the evening. Still, sleep was difficult. You will really feel the altitude at the campground at 2,800 meters of altitude. Since our path downwards should be a lot easier, we decided to take our time and to dry off the tent a bit before heading onwards. After a nice breakfast with incredible views, we slowly made our way towards Glola. One thing that becomes apparent immediately is that the paths on this side of the mountain are a lot more accessible and used a lot more than the side from Shovi. We still have to do minor climbs, The first one directly starting from the campsite up to the hill overlooking it. From here, we headed mostly downhill through rhododendron fields and flower meadows. Even the insects are less aggressive on this side of the trail. The path itself is easy to spot and a lot easier to follow. In these initial segments, the path is also not very slippery, so we were making quite a good pace. Only after crossing the river, the trail becomes slippery again. On the slightly angled and slippery trail, one has to pay close attention to not slip into the steep downhill sections on the left side of the trail. Luckily, the traverse along the slippery section isn't too long before we head into the forest again. From here, the main challenge becomes the exhaustion and the slippery floor along many segments of the forest trail. We slipped multiple times on the descent, so I would call it more than likely to spend some moments on your butt on the way down. The descent is still not getting close to the challenge of the ascent. It only took us about 3.5 hours to reach Glola.
Seitlich laufen.
Thank you for joining us on the trip to Udziro Lake. Now, subscribe for more hiking journeys from across the world.